Hey guys, what's going on? So, a few things to note about the video you are about to watch. The heroes are ranked based on their usefulness in PvP and PvE, so while someone like Kayn is one of the best in PvP, he's not very good in other parts of the game due to his PvP focused skill set. Also, PvE in this case mostly relates to world boss, since advents are all quite different and usually requires very specific heroes. Regardless, I will try and tell you if the heroes here are good in advents and which ones. With that in mind, let's get started. Up at number 10 we have Kayn. Overall a very solid support, has nice passives and abilities both for PvE and PvP. In a mono team, for something like World Boss, she'll passively heal the lowest HP ally by at least 10% for every skill 1 activation. She can also manipulate the turn order with her skill 2 and her passive. Her skill 2 forces whoever she heals to go instantly, and if an ally drops to 30% or below, she will go instantly, being able to heal them and or remove any dangerous debuffs. This is useful for both World Boss and PvP. In World Boss, the concentration gauge is dependent on skill usage, so being able to use more skills faster will get you the concentration faster. In addition to that, she has no dedicated revive skill, so you don't need to wait for someone to die to use her S3, which again is huge for concentration. She does auto revive with her level 60 hero talent, so that is a huge bonus as well. She's just a really solid all-round healer that can get an ally out of a bad situation. She's also good in practically every advent, but you may think twice about bringing her in Kali, though, as she does have the elemental disadvantage there. Up at number 9 we have Claude, a solid tanky support which can also act as a very strong healer. He has good AoE taunts on his first skill, 2-turn sleep and brand chance on his second, and an insanely powerful third skill. With his third skill, he can potentially inflict Looming Death to 3 targets, granted they already have any form of debuff on them. In addition to that, he'll give himself a super powerful 2-turn buff that provides himself with damage immunity, applies a 1-turn Veil of Phantasm to all allies as soon as it's casted, gives a 70% chance to taunt all enemies every turn it's active, apply a Veil of Phantasm to all allies every turn it's active, and finally, he will make all allies have the same percent HP he has at the end of his turn. And since he's a tank, at least in AoE heavy situations, he should have the most HP most of the time. Also, if an enemy happens to remove this buff, they will fall asleep for 2 turns. Claude was MVP for me in the Kristian advent, and due to his darkness element, he can be pretty versatile in where you use him. Up at number 8, we have Ruby, our first attacker on this list, and quite amusingly, one of the direct counters to Claude, due to the fact she can pretty easily remove his amazing Ghost Girl buff, as well as other buffs with her passive skill. That's one of the 2 things that makes Ruby really good. The other is the synergy she has with herself and the cooldown of her skills. Using S1 can reduce the cooldown of S2, using S2 can reduce the cooldown of S3, and every time she's attacked, there's a chance to reduce the cooldown of all skills. In addition to that, every time a skill does have its cooldown reduced, she'll heal herself by 20%. She's another solid all-around hero that can keep herself healthy unless she gets nuked down. MVP for Taiyo advent, great leader skill for Water World Boss, and of course, top tier for PvP. Up at number 7 we have Taiyo, the first advent hero in the list, but be prepared for more. Advent heroes are not only good due to the fact they're farmable and you can skill them up, but also many of them just have nice skill sets. Taiyo, for example, is a beast at damage with his crit focused skill set and his counter and multi-strikes having bonus additional damage on them. His S1 can easily be his best skill if you have a lot of counter and multi-strike on him, but his S3 is no joke either. It's a single target with a decent chance to stun the target for 2 turns if it doesn't outright kill them. For 1 turn, after using his S3, he will also take considerably less damage, making him on the tankier side of attackers. Speaking of which, his passives are also very nice, giving him added damage, crit chance, and damage reduction when he gets under 50% HP. Taiyo was another MVP for the Kristian advent and really cleaned up the actual boss Damien. Good for Sinclair and Decaying advents as well. Naturally great for PvP as well, just has massive damage there with all those counterattacks and multi-strikes going on. Up at number 6 we have Sid. Yes, another advent hero, but this time it's a support. Sid brings a lot of utility to the table. Grants shields to the entire team, gives a nice crit rate, damage immunity, and attack buff to all allies once per battle when an ally drops below 30%, can cleanse debuffs, heal passively with S1, burst heal with S2, and revive up to 2 allies with S3. Should he himself fall, he will revive himself once as well. As for advents, since he's a support, and a damn good one at that, he can be used pretty much everywhere. As always, take caution with his elemental weakness, but besides that, he's good to go. Up at number 5, we have Rue, another support, and I had quite a hard time deciding the place here, but Rue is really exceptional. Sadly, unlike Sid, she's not an advent hero, which means skilling her up will be much harder until we have access to Luna. Regardless, she has some amazing abilities. One of the main things that makes her special is her unique revive. Not only will it totally reset all cooldowns of the revived hero, but it will instantly make it their turn while giving them an attack buff. There's been many instances where this has saved me, going from just Rue and Claude back to full team by reviving Ramuh, and then in turn Ramuh could revive the 2 that were dead. Besides that, her passives are amazing as well, removing any and all damage immunity and shields from the enemy at the start of her turn, as well as removing 1 debuff from all allies at the end of her turn. She can also instantly remove any other debuffs from up to 3 allies with her S2, while giving them immunity to further debuffs for 2 turns. She's the god of PvP, but outside of that, you may want an additional support, as Rue's actual healing abilities aren't the best. So for longer fights like hard advents, she's best paired with someone like Sid, Ramuh, or Karen. Up at number 4, we have Amon, the newest hero at the time of recording. Naturally, his 3rd skill is what makes him stand out. It guarantees to land a debuff that kills the inflicted enemy if they use their 3rd skill. There's a chance it also lands on adjacent enemies as well. This makes him incredible for PvP situations once you learn how the AI of different heroes in Arena act. However, another sometimes overlooked ability of Amon, which is equally incredible, is his passive. When he uses his 1st or 2nd skill, he's guaranteed to give himself a buff that not only increases his accuracy and evasion by 40%, but also increases the damage dealt by all allies by 30%. Not to be confused with an attack buff, this damage buff applies its multiplier at the end of the formula, making it even more effective. And finally, something quite unique to tanks is that he'll heal the first ally that would have died back up to 50% HP, acting almost like a revive, but better, since they don't actually die. He also has an 80% chance to go first, regardless of attack speed, as long as he's the only Amon. Due to his element and his pretty constant damage buff to all allies, he's good pretty much everywhere. His 3rd skill is best in PvP, but can be used outside of PvP as well. I'm not sure exactly how monster AI works, but for example, the first enemy in the Decaying Advent instantly died from Amon's S3 debuff when it summoned its minions, so I assume it also works for any non-boss enemy. Up at number 3, we have Morrigan. Pure damage. Amazing for PvP, very good for most PvE content as well. 3rd skill is a single target nuke that has a chance at casting Revive Unavailable, which is super useful on Ramuhs in PvP if it does happen to proc. That's at least what I use it for. 2nd skill removes a buff from the enemy with a chance to bleed them, which procs her passive, increasing her attack up to 50% while they take 50% of Morrigan's attack every turn they are bleeding. The thing that makes her stand out though is her level 60 hero talent. When she dies, she's revived as a berserker, guaranteeing counterattack and multi-strike, as well as decreasing her damage taken by 25% for 3 turns. The only downside is that you can't control her. As stated before, she's excellent for PvP, but also almost needed in the Kali Advent. Very good for the Sid Advent, and can be used for Sinclair and Decayne as well. Up at number 2 is a hero I don't actually own yet because I'm weak and can't do her dungeon. Yes, it's Kali. Renowned for having the hardest Advent dungeon currently in the game, but obviously worth the struggles. She is actually more PvP focused than some other heroes before her, but she really shines there. The thing I like the most about her is her S3. Again, it's a single target nuke, but with great side effects. First, it'll deal up to 35% more damage to attack types, and if they die, Kali will get up to a 40% attack buff for 2 turns. This skill tells you to kill them, not to debuff them or stun them, and I like that. She has a crazy level 60 hero talent too. Not only will it fully recover her when she takes fatal damage, but she'll blind everyone as well. She also deals a significant amount of damage when attacking someone affected with damage over time, like bleed or poison. Speaking of poison, her main passive gives her a 50% chance to hide when using skills, and if she's already hiding when her turn comes, she'll poison 3 enemies. And speaking of bleeding, her skill 2 gives her up to a 60% chance to cause bleeding to the enemy she hits. Also, if she's hiding when she uses this skill, she'll hit 2 more enemies and cause them to bleed too. So yeah, pretty nice synergy there. Again, she's best for PvP, but can generally be used everywhere as a strong wind DPS. And finally, at number 1, we have Kristian, our newest Advent hero. He's the first hero I actually maxed, so I could be a little biased here. Like Taiyo, he is also crit focused, but has quite a bit more survivability with his heal over time passive and damage immunity. He may be a hybrid type, so he has less overall attack stat, but he still can dish out some really big numbers. Also on his passive, he'll get 20% additional damage per buff he has, and since he can grant himself buffs, that's not insignificant. His first skill comes with a very nice side effect. At max level, he has a 60% chance to grant himself a 30% crit chance buff, which also gives him 20% more damage from his passive. His second skill is also quite good. It hits up to 3 enemies and can apply reveal weakness until the inflicted enemy attacks. This guarantees that any attack hitting the enemy will be a critical. And finally, his third skill is a single target nuke that guarantees the enemy hit will have all of its skills on cooldown for at least 1 turn. At max level, this goes to 2 turns. In addition, there's a chance to remove all buffs from the enemy hit. This is assuming, of course, that the target doesn't just die. He's also quite good with other light heroes, as his level 60 hero talent has an 80% chance to reduce the duration of debuffs for all light allies. He is definitely an all-round unit. Good everywhere, PvP, all advents, world boss, etc. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the top 10 best heroes in Knights Chronicle. Feel free to agree or disagree in the comments down below. Naturally, lists like this are just a reference. Some heroes not on this list would deserve to be for certain content, like Kayn for PvP, Ashley for PvE, etc. I try to get heroes that are generally good for more content to get an idea about who is a good investment. But yeah, make sure to tell me what you think about it in the comments down below. Also make sure to smash that like button to have 16 callies sent to your inbox instantly. Why did I write that? But seriously, these types of videos take several hours to put together, including research, clip collecting, script writing, editing, and so forth, so it really would be greatly appreciated. But anyway, that'll do it for today. Thanks, as always, for watching, and until next time.